Taxation is theft.
Please, at least leave us alone in our living room.
My job is to find the truth.
Double the taxes. I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. Triple the taxes.
This is an IRS agent's dream.
If you think that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourself.
Beautiful, lovely taxes.
Sorry, but I don't do taxes.
Did you see the memo about this?
The government is a greedy piglet.
Just leave us alone.
Do you know what Ralph just said?
The roads. You boys like Mexico? I'm as bad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore.
Welcome back. Taxation is theft, of course. And I have with me today Christine, who's actually a homeschool mom. And I wanted to talk about homeschooling because we have this kind of notion that without government, there wouldn't be any schools and everyone would be stupid and society would just decay into absolute, I don't know what. I don't even know if you could call it anarchy or chaos, just stupidity, idiocracy. So there's been a lot of talk about homeschooling over the past few years, and even in non-libertarian, non-taxationist theft circles. So I really wanted to kind of dive into this and get a lot more information and see what's this really about. Is this really a good, viable solution to government schooling? Will it work in the big picture? So we're just kind of going to have a conversation and learn some more about it. So Christine, welcome.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Happy to have you. So first, I guess, give me a little bit of your story. How did you find out about homeschooling? How long have you been doing it? What's involved? What's kind of, where are you at with that?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's we're really at the beginning of our homeschooling journey because we only decided to take my son out of public school in April. If I had had it my way, he wouldn't have gone to school ever, but it was difficult with family and, my husband, who was initially on board for homeschooling, even in kindergarten, he kind of backtracked a little and he's like, well, maybe, we just see how it goes. And yeah, I wish we had never even just, seen how it went. But anyway, right. Our son is very bright. He's very charming. He's very witty. He's very funny, the things he comes out of nowhere with. But things or behaviors, I should say, that I remember seeing in my little brother when we were kids are like, I don't want to sound dramatic, but demonized now in public schooling. I remember I went to public school all, 12 years through high school. I remember, feeling very, imprisoned. It felt like prison. Yeah. You didn't even have the choice of what bathroom to use. You had to use the one closest to your classroom. So say, in the middle class, you had to go use the bathroom. You had to use the one nearest to the classroom you were in. So you couldn't even, say you needed to use the potty, more than just going number one, if you know what I'm saying. And you wanted to go down to the, the end of the floor to use that bathroom.
That a little bit cleaner.
Right? Yeah, a little bit cleaner or a little quieter. No one's going to, be bothering you while you're thinking deeply.
Right.
Or whatever. But, if you were caught in like a non-designated bathroom, I guess, you would get written up, so, and it's even worse now, now I know one of the nearby school districts, there was a huge thing because they were not allowing kindergartners and first graders to go on demand because they didn't have a bathroom in their classroom like a lot of the newer schools do. And the parents were up in arms over that, which I could understand because, hello, kindergarten, first grade, you're still kind of getting the hang of things. So.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, I lost it.
Yeah, my power just went out for a second. I'm in Mexico right now, so it does that from time to time.
Oh, nice.
But I think the connection. Oh no, my camera just shut off completely. Hang on a second. Let me see. Let me see if I can get that back.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, usually the internet stays on. Everything over there is on a battery backup. Um, but let's see here. So let me, while I'm trying to get this going. Um, so how old is your son, and like how many years of school did he go through before you decided to make this change?
He's 8 years old, and he was almost done with third grade when we had decided, that was enough. And our reason for doing that was because, he had been evaluated by the school psychologist. We had also filled out a questionnaire, little pamphlet thing, so they could assess, a couple different things, even though they would always stress, we're not medical, we're not of the medical field, so we can't diagnose, but we can say, what we see, blah, blah, blah. So at his 3-year IEP meeting, they had said that he had indications of having ADD, which, okay, I could see the kid always talking, always moving around. I could totally see that. All right, whatever. ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder, which I was a little hesitant to agree with. I mean, even though at the same time, I don't know where he gets that whole.
That just sounds like something the government would come up with to somebody who doesn't
really,
like following orders. That's
right. Yeah, it really is, because that is honestly what the the definition of that particular set of behaviors is a general
and that's
shirking
not
authority.
a bad thing. I mean, I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with that.
I try to cultivate it, in the kid,
Right.
But so that I was like, all right, whatever, Then they started getting into saying that he's in his head too much. There's too much magical thinking. Basically that he's too imaginative. And at the bottom of the little evaluation sheet or whatever, it, had in bold lettering, of course, too, it said, this is an indicator of serious mental illness and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
wow.
So he's 8 years old and he says things like, my best friend today is a teal dragon, whatever, because he's 8 years old. You know what I mean? Like, but I really know a lot of it stems from the fact that from the moment he was placed in that school, and it is an alternative school, because Jay, he'd get pissed off, at school. He would, I can't tell you how many times he would come home and say that he had gotten into trouble when it was someone else poking him or, giving him looks across the room or giving him the finger across the room, stuff like that. So no one would listen to him and he'd throw chairs, So like, again, I understand,
Right.
Like, I don't condone it at all. I mean, it's absolutely unacceptable. You cannot throw chairs just because, you feel things are unfair, however, I understand, but, anyway,
yeah, I think that's, I think that's a frustration that a lot of people have. And, and I don't want to justify it, but at the same time, when people get frustrated with the way things are, they will rebel and they will use acts of violence. But what's interesting is when the government does that, then it's okay, right? So if you didn't send your kids to school and you didn't force them to go and you didn't get permission to homeschool, they will send the police to your house. Well, why aren't you sending your kids here? That's defiance,
it's ridiculous.
opposition, whatever they call it. And
right,
it's like, and now they're throwing a tantrum. They're not throwing chairs at you, but they're potentially throwing bullets at you. They're sending armed police.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we've had problems with that school before, because I had straight up told them, when we had placed him there, that under no circumstances ever, over my absolute stone cold dead body, would he ever be medicated, that I would not be willing to trade what, is my child's developing and growing brain for funding, because I can't tell you how many times I'd be in meetings with the principal and the teachers and stuff that I'd want to sweep the papers off
What do
the
you
desk
mean?
and be like, no.
What do you mean trading it for
Oh, yeah.
funding?
Oh, this is a lovely thing, isn't it? It predates Common Core, which is the current. Well, actually, Trump has been getting away from it, but it's still Common Core. Which if this was 5 years ago, I'd be a little more on top of things, links and sources wise. But anyway, Common Core is basically a federal set of mandates that stipulate that you have to educate a child that is in Chicago, Illinois, just the same as you would in Austin, Texas. A lot of the states have been dropping out of the Common Core aligned curriculum, or at least in name, they've been doing that. But ever since it was called Race to the Top, it was an Obama era incentive program for schools to basically, monkey in the bucket or monkey in the barrel. I don't remember what the phrase is, but you're grappling over each other, basically, to get money from the federal government. And it there has been, in place since then, and even before then as well, where the more kids that are medicated or diagnosed with having, learning disorder, behavioral disorders, that sort of thing, the more funding the school is eligible for from the state and the federal government. So they have an incentive, basically to drug up all the kids, to tell you the truth. So, yeah. So, and that's something, and I know Illinois is one of the states that very much, dips into that sort of thing because, we're very broke. So,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's, and I this is a total oddball story that I have, but I had this really crazy math teacher in middle school, and decades later, this was only a few years ago, so I'm already graduated from the school and other schools beyond, but he had been working there so long, and he's this crazy mathematical genius, right? So he calculates and he says, if I start taking my my retirement benefits right now, I'm going to receive a monthly check every month that's larger than my salary check. So he retired, and then he went back to the school and said he was going to work for free. But the school said, you can't work for free because then we don't have an official classroom, and if we put our students in your classroom, we don't get funds for it. So they turned down a free teacher. Who's not just any free teacher, like a mathematical genius.
Just an absolute genius. Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, and it just goes to show you that there's really no thinking in, in structured public education. There really isn't. There's no follow through. I mean, how many times do you hear ridiculous stories with, girls that, I'm wearing like an oversized sweater, and then it comes off my shoulder or whatever, you can't see anything, no butt cheeks, no toe, if you know what I'm saying,
right.
Nothing, but that little sliver of shoulder, and then girls are getting sent home over that, and it's just idiocy, like they're just really, in my son's original school district, they had this stupid program. I meant to look it up before we got online here, but it was called Bullies to Buddies, and basically it was like a guide or rules for getting over being bullied, basically, I guess. And one of the rules, or one of the methods, was to not be a tattletale, to not tell anyone. I'm like, oh, so you're just going to let, the children get tortured in silence? Like, what do you mean, don't tell anyone?
Yeah.
Like that's, I don't know. I had always told.
This has always kind of bothered me that, they when I was a kid, they used to tell us, if somebody does something, somebody hits you, you go tell, right? But then that's what they would tell you in school. But then you get home, and sometimes, grandparents would say, "Don't be a tattletale." That usually came if, like, oh, he stole a candy out of something trivial, right? But then if you get punched in the face, then you're supposed to tell so that someone can do something about it, right?
Yeah, because it's yeah.
It's kind of like they're trying to oversimplify, because I mean, and maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe because they understand their children, and they're not going to be able to make that decision. Like, should you tell? Should you not tell? Should you act in self-defense? Should you, what should you do? Maybe these are too many things to teach at that age. But it's definitely not always applicable in every scenario.
Right.
What they are teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. I've got plenty of stories about how insane my schooling was.
Yeah.
So now,
It's just silly.
did you go to public school your entire life, or did you have any experience being homeschooled or anything?
Actually, no. I have friends who were homeschooled. I actually have a long-term, because hairdresser, so I've been cutting his hair since he was like 11, I think, and he's a grown man now. He's like 25 or 26, which is weird. Every time I'm like, he'll always be 11 to me. But he was homeschooled, and he was like he's an articulate kid. He's not a bonehead. He reads up on the Federal Reserve and all that stuff, which is good. So the only experience I had with homeschooling before now was, just friends as a kid, or even, as an adult too. So just friends, basically.
Okay. And so I know, like, if I were to look at this, my first objection would be, because I don't have any kids, but I absolutely hate the government. So I would if I did, I would totally go for the homeschool thing. But my first objection would be, I don't know if I have time for that.
Right.
And I know you've only been into this for a few months. How has that been working out? What do you expect as far as your time commitment to make this happen?
Well, that's, it's from all the reading I've been doing. I love the library anyway, but I've been going more to the library more than I have in probably years, the last couple of months. But John Taylor Gatto was a educator. I probably totally mispronounced his name, but maybe I didn't.
I think that's right.
Yeah, he was an educator, award-winning, and he had said in one of the homeschooling books that I had reviewed, because, it's overwhelming. You really think like, oh, am I going to have to sit this kid down 7 hours a day, just like, you would in a school setting or a public school setting. But he had said that, according to his experience with, of being an educator for, I think it was over 30 years, and, in knowing how kids learn, how they retain information, all that stuff, that it was 50 hours of one-on-one time, and then kids can be self-taught from then on. So, if you're only doing, I shouldn't say only, but if you're doing a couple hours of homeschooling a day, you're probably fine. You're probably okay, because I have talked to a few people, both online and, in real life. And, anywhere from moms and dads too, that homeschool all year round, and they're only, it's only a couple hours a day. And then you have people that, adhere to the school schedule just to kind of give the kid, I don't know, I guess, sense of normality.
Right. So they get summer off with the rest of the kids or something like that.
Right. Exactly. Even though I already told my kid, I was like, yeah, no, because again, going back to Common Core and stuff, he doesn't, no writing in cursive, can barely structure sentences, does not know how to read or spell phonetically. I mean, just absolutely, like, I'm so mad that I did not stick to my guns and say, no, we can do this at home, because it really, it's frustrating, and I just, anyway, but
Yeah.
in this day and age, when it comes to homeschooling, with the internet, I mean, geez, Ron Paul has a homeschooling program, believe it or not, and which I looked into a little bit, and I may, when my son's a little bit older, because he stresses, that it is very, very much self-taught, and, the child has to be self-motivated, and I have to nag this kid a lot. So,
Right.
so
Um,
yeah, like,
yeah, no, that's
so yeah.
that's really interesting. And there's that's actually one of my next questions was how did you pick your curriculum? Because I've, you know, that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. Like, okay, well, if there's no school, because we're just used to like, well, without government, who would create the curriculum?
Right.
And it's like it's obvious. Okay, well, there's got to be people doing it. I know that there's like schools like the what's it called, the Khan Academy, and I haven't used it, so I don't know how structured it is. But then I started hearing like Cambridge University has a curriculum that's that's I don't know how young it starts, but it's for kids.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that
Yeah,
one.
it's really fascinating that there's, I mean, so I made this post yesterday, looking for people who are homeschooling and just kind of get their story, and this is the one that we started talking on, and a lot of people, if you go through that thread, you'll see like people are like there's like a dozen recommendations of different curriculums in there already.
Yeah, yeah,
And
but
there's so
yeah.
which one did you decide to go with, and kind of what led you to that decision?
Actually, I've been kind of putting together a curriculum piecemeal because I figure I'm just going to kind of scooch him into fourth grade already because a lot of the skills that he was lacking a couple months ago, he's already made up,
Wow.
like he's writing a better and stuff like that. We've been working on fractions, adding and subtracting fractions, whole numbers and fractions, that sort of thing. And when I took him out, they hadn't even started division yet. So yeah, just basic division.
I'm trying to think when I even started learning fractions, because if he's in third grade learning that, that's
and
that's pretty young, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, I guess it kind of is, but he's just that good at math. He just
Awesome.
I joke around all the time, that he's not autistic, he's not, he doesn't have Asperger's or anything, but he's like my little Rain Man because the stuff he comes out with, I swear, like, and I mean that in the most loving way possible.
Right.
But the other day he was, coming over and asking me if I knew who the dictator of North Korea was. And then told me, his dad and, oh, they're not good people, Mom. No, they really aren't, buddy. He's funny. But anyway,
Wow.
I've piecing together between education.com. Now they have, I think it's per month, you can download like 5 worksheets. But I paid, I think it was $60 for the year. And now I get unlimited worksheets, workbooks. They have games. They have curriculum that you can follow, that you can, I think you can even upgrade, and, they have guided lessons and stuff too. But there's also all-in-one homeschool.com, and that's easy peasy. And but that's more of a Christian based, so if people aren't into that, just to let you know. And then, let's see, Timberdoodle, that one, timberdoodle.com, which I'm like, oh, Timberdoodle, it sounds so cute.
Right.
But it's spelled exactly like it sounds, timberdoodle.com. That one has curriculum kits, so it has a traditional Christian homeschooling bent. They have a non-religious, and then they even have custom. Now, I'm not sure exactly, what the pricing goes with that, because I'm assuming you'd have to pay for that. But they also have graphic novels, like with Superman and Spider-Man, and, like, oh, Spider-Man's going to learn about, the Revolutionary War today, like stuff like that, which I thought was kind of, yeah. And, they have craft projects, stuff like that. But yeah, education.com. And then I haven't really looked into it too much, but teacherspayteachers.com has been suggested. They have, for pay, curriculums and stuff like that. But they also have free like downloads, free fonts if you want to make your own worksheets, things like that. And then I had from one of the other anarchist moms on Facebook, she had suggested used, and then it's textbooks-online.com. And you can get 80s and 90s textbooks, with the old algorithms for math and,
Nice.
None of this. Yeah, none of this
Pre-propaganda
social
era.
Yeah, before they were trying to say, like that the colonizers and, the natives came together and decided the natives needed to move to make room.
Oh, wow. Is that in there?
Yeah, I wish I still had. I used to have that saved on my phone.
man.
I had, when I was knee deep and, going crazy fighting Common Core out here. That was in one of the textbooks, Common Core aligned textbooks, that basically, this little blurb explaining away the Trail of Tears, basically. And I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
no. Yeah, it's kind of, it's a little alarming, actually. A lot of the amount of propaganda and nonsense that are, in our kids' books
When
and
I
stuff.
hear that stuff, like something inside of me just wants to scream out, "No, you're lying. This cannot be in there. That cannot be true." But
Right. How dare you?
but then I'm like,
I'm not native, but like that offends me at like a human primal level. Like, how dare you, not only trivialize, a really horrific period in history and a really horrific amount of suffering, that people of Native descent are still doing to this day. I mean, oh my gosh, no, like how it's just minstrelized, like just gross.
right.
Like I was repulsed by it, really, because it's just,
I've seen some of the things that they say on the Second Amendment, or on free speech, and yeah, it's like I see these posts online sometimes, and I'm like, this has to be Photoshop. Somebody made this up. This can't be like
right. This can't possibly be, but yeah.
I keep going back to this one that I remember that, when Dare used to come to us, I remember they didn't come out and say it, but they pretty much implied, if you ever get arrested, don't ask for a lawyer because it's going to make you look guilty. And so this was when I was a kid. Then 25 years later, I was hanging out with a bunch of criminal defense lawyers that I was working with, and one of them told me that one of their kids came home and said that they were told the same thing. And I'm like,
oh my.
And this was like, I was in California. This was in, I don't know if this was in Texas or like somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere totally different. And it's insane that this kind of stuff is out there.
Right. I agree.
But that's public school, and and what's really difficult about that is you send your kids to these schools for 6 hours a day, roughly.
Right. 6 hours, yeah.
And then they come home, and first they're probably burned out from those 6 hours, but then you can't just ask them, so tell me everything that you learned today. And then, they're going to forget a few things, and you're not there to correct them. Like, no, that's wrong. Don't listen to that unless you go through, like, they're not going to be able to regurgitate all 6 hours of that. And it's
right.
Yeah. It's a big thing to undo.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, because like my, I had seen it in my son before, the amount of anxiety he would have about going to school and stuff, because he's very emotional little guy. He just he gets pissed off, and but the thing is, it would be very difficult because we don't see that behavior at home. It was purely at school. Right. Like we can take him anywhere, like we go to family members' houses just fine. The behaviors he was displaying at school, he never ever displayed at home, which is another reason why I had been, kind of dubious about the whole ODD thing, because if if he truly did have oppositional defiance disorder, he's going to be telling me to go F myself, just as much
Right.
as he's going to be telling his teachers, and he doesn't. He's totally fine. So, that was another reason why we had said, absolutely no medication, because, this will just take him out of the environment that, it's just not working, and it's really, like, I don't want to say sad, because, I don't want to insult people, but, I can only imagine the amount of parents, that would be in that little room that I was in with, all these administrators and everything, and would feel pressured and scared into getting their kid medicated. And it's all for funding, and that's really gross,
Right.
like, and it's,
And
yeah,
especially,
and it's,
to more people that, people who aren't like us, who don't have that understanding, they think, they think so highly of the government. They think like, oh, these people are here to help us and protect us. Whatever they recommend, they must be experts. They have all this extra
right.
knowledge. They've done study. They're the smartest people in the world. These orders are this information is coming all the way down from the genius Trump, and we must, and like there are people that they trust because they don't know. They don't. There is uncertainty, but that's life. Life is always
Right.
uncertain. So I
Oh,
guess
absolutely.
when you have these people trying to like sell you, oh no, we're absolutely certain they need to take this medication, then it's like, well, I don't know, they seem pretty sure about it. To the
Yeah,
trusting
they wouldn't
person,
lie to me. Yeah, they wouldn't. Why would they lie to me? They just want what's best for my
right?
child, when no, they really don't. Like,
Yeah,
they want a kid that's going to be obedient and sits down and shuts up. And, like they did, the school that he was in, they didn't go on field trips. They didn't have a playground. They played in the basement area, which was like the cafeteria slash gym slash, because there's a little stage area there too, I guess auditorium or whatever. But the schools, I really feel like they are, they're designed to create a subservient, easily kowtowed, easily, oh, okay, subjugated populace. Like it's, I can't remember who said it, but and of course I'm slaughtering it here. But the government, or whoever rules you isn't going to give you the education required to overthrow them. Like that's
right,
just, it's not going to happen. I mean, I remember seeing in my son's behavior last year, when we were trying to tell him, of course, you're not aggressive. You don't, you put your hands on anybody, that sort of thing. But if someone is aggressive with you, puts their hands on you, you have every right to defend yourself, and I'll deal with it, And like, from constantly getting it drummed in, like you can't, if you fight back, you're just as bad, blah, 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 blah. Like you could see it, like he got sweaty almost, like he's like, what that? Like he was getting ready to like, like his brain was going to fry, because there is such a, constant pressure to, be quiet, don't speak out of turn,
right,
don't get out of your desk, no moving around, don't keep your hands to yourself, blah, blah, blah. It's just constant, 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 so if you're in any way like trying to deprogram the kid, sometimes you'll see, anxiety, and he would get really anxious and like, but I can't, but I, like, yes, Jay, you can, like if you need to defend yourself, you defend yourself and that's it, but he had it again, drummed into his head so much that, if you're putting your hands on anybody, even if they hit you first, with the whole
right.
zero tolerance baloney, that you're just as bad. And I'm, it was difficult to get him past that, and it's sad when you think about it, like that these kids are being taught not to stick up for themselves, not to, defend themselves, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, ugh, what, so.
Yeah, and it's we were talking about like the environment, and how they're in a different environment now. So I can see, when you put that many people, first of all, when you put that many unsupervised children together in a room, and I know, okay, there's a teacher there, but it's one teacher versus 15, 20, 30, 40 kids.
Right.
Things are gonna things are gonna happen. Things are gonna get crazy. They're gonna get out of control. They're not being supervised or taught about interact. They're gonna have new interactions that they've never seen before, and they're not gonna know how to react. So it's understandable that someone would say, okay, if you don't know how to react, just don't react. Just sit there and do absolutely nothing. But the reality is, we don't want people to be conditioned to be that way throughout their entire life. So they shouldn't be experiencing these new interactions for the first time in a way that they can't learn from it. They can't learn the right way to deal with it because nobody's supervising. Nobody with that knowledge is there to teach them. I think that's kind of, it's, like you were saying, it's the environment that is actually creating an unsafe learning experience, that you have to come up with these crazy rules that don't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because, these kids, they're constantly being told to sit down and, shut up, basically. And, when, again, going back to when I was a kid, my little brother used to love drawing war scenes, like with little stick men and everything. He'd be sure to grab a red crayon or marker or whatever, so he could have blood spurting out of necks and stuff, because he was just a weird boy. They do that, but I was thinking about it the other day, if he were to be that same little boy in this day and age, I have no doubt that the school would be calling home, like, oh, your son is, seriously disturbed, and right. He's drawing all this. And here he is, a grown man, a computer engineer for Motorola. I'm pretty sure he's not going to go on any killing sprees. It's going to be okay, but again, there really is, there's no, there's just no thinking for yourself in the public school setting. There really isn't, you see it all the time, hear it all the time. Where a principal or administrator, otherwise, school district is just being absolutely ridiculous about nothing. I just read about a girl that she was, I guess, it was like a senior prank sort of thing. She was going into the girls' bathroom at the high school, and there were 4 boys in the girls' bathroom because they were trying to get back at the girls for some sort of prank that they had pulled in the boys' bathroom or something. I don't remember the nonsense, kids. Right. But they end up letting her into the bathroom, then they wouldn't let her out again. So she got upset, felt threatened, and she kneed one of the kids in the balls. And, of course he crumples and she gets out of the bathroom. She wasn't allowed to go to prom. Did they get any punishment? She was not allowed to go to prom. Yeah.
And what about the other kids?
Nothing. No punishment.
No false imprisonment charges?
No, nothing.
I mean,
and I was just like, mother, just shit like that, man.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
I mean, you hear stories like this, and you can totally understand why people don't understand the concept of self-defense. And I mean, even in self-defense, we have this idea that, you don't need to use excessive force. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, you don't need to pull out your gun and blow their brains out. If somebody, if somebody leaves you a threatening voicemail, you don't need to run over to their house and shoot them in the face. But at the same time, sometimes it takes a little bit more force to, if like, let's say you punch someone and they're on the ground and they keep getting up. Like, you got to do a little bit more so that they're not going to chase you down the street. So there's, but these are conversations I guess you can't have with your kids, or else they'll say, oh, you're putting all these violent thoughts into your kid's head.
Right,
and you need to
all these violent tendencies in your child's head. And,
it's
we knew it, dirty anarchist.
So so here's another one that you mentioned a couple times that I've always had this opinion on this. So it's the ADD. It's the kids have too much energy and they're being told to just sit down and shut up and don't move. And okay, here's my theory, and I don't know how much science there is behind it. Maybe it's got to do with the hormones, because you've basically got small people who have chemicals in their body, making them grow into big people, which means they're consuming lots of calories, which is turning into energy, and it's making them, go from a small human to a big human.
Yeah.
That gives you energy to run and play and do things. And you're trying to contain all of that and say, just sit there, whatever you do, just sit there. And it's like, no, we have chemical energy inside of our bodies that's making us want to move.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's not only that. I mean, I've really, I when he was in school, I would stress to them, all the time, I really appreciate when he does well and you give him a snack or whatever, but find the kid a plum, or, a peach. He loves those,
What were they
he
giving
doesn't
him?
need a bag. Cheetos.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm like, Cheetos. I'm like, I don't, like the crap, high fructose corn syrup for one, red 40, yellow 5, all that, those colors and high fructose corn syrup, it might as well be crack for these kids. It really might as well be, and I had told them, and I tried to stress, I said, he will be messed up for days, even just like one bag of Cheetos or whatever, he will be like a hummingbird all over the place. Like, no, like, stop giving him that shit, So, I think it's not only a matter of, the school setting being totally, not a good fit for children in general. But, the fact is a lot of these kids are just eating absolute garbage every day, hour upon hour. Like one of my guy friends, we were talking the other day and he sent me a picture. He's like, oh, making lunches, and it's like Wonder Bread. It's like Wonder Bread and then the snack size Doritos and like a can of pop. And I'm just like, oh, as I'm looking at it, like, oh my God, like he'd never sleep again. My son would never sleep again. Like it just, I think that's a lot of it, that people are not, though I will say, and maybe it's just me being a hopeful fool, because a lot of the time I really am being one. But I do see more people realizing, okay, if I put absolute garbage in my body, I'm going to feel like garbage, pretty soon afterward. And that, if I let my kids have, an Orange Crush pop, and then I notice that they're again bouncing off the walls, their behavior goes downhill, smaller kids, tantrums out of nowhere, this is all because, I'm trying to remember what his name is, but he calls them excitogens, because it's that high fructose corn syrup is a huge rush of it's derived from natural sugar, but it's processed, it's a processed, it's nasty. It's so bad for you. But, like kids, we're not eating like we did 50 years ago. We're not eating like we did, 30 years ago. GMO and all that nonsense, and the additives and all that, were really born in the 80s and the 90s. GMO was like, I think 93 was the first GMO. I think it was the tomato. It was designed to not bruise as easily and not spoil, so that it could stay fresher for shipment.
Right.
But I remember being in high school, my dad used to get Time magazine, and I remember seeing a big tomato with like skull and crossbones on the front of it, talking about GMO. And I remember being like, what's that? And then I went back to looking and seeing what Jessica Simpson was doing, or whatever at the time. But yeah, it's just, it really, like the Department of Federal Education has only been in existence since 1980. And, it's really been downhill from there. We, consistently the U.S. consistently ranks lower than, a lot of like European countries that you wouldn't even think of, are kicking the crap out of us. China, of course, because they always are. And Japan, and, they're doing way better than we are. All the France, Germany, all of them, everybody, like we consistently rank, toward the bottom end when it comes to education, and we have, again, gotten consistently worse ever since the creation of the federal, Department of Education. So it really hasn't been any help at all. And actually, when everybody was freaking out over Cittadini appointing Betsy Davos, whatever the heck her name was, being the head of the federal Department of Education, everybody's like, oh God, she's going to burn it all down. And I'm like, good, like do it, like, please. So it really isn't beneficial to anybody. And if you ask me, it needs to be dismantled. So, because
it's always this, it's this mentality that we've kind of grown into where, it's everywhere. It's, whether we're talking about education or healthcare or abortion or, anything, gun control. Everybody wants to go to the federal government and say, if our state won't do this, let's go to the feds. And they come up with a program and they say, we want the entire country to homogeneously accept this new program. And so now that's what they're doing with education. They're trying to make every single school exactly the same. But when you do that, first, you don't know if this program that you have is the best. And once you implement it, you have no way of finding out because you have nothing to compare it to. You don't have two school districts, one saying, oh, we're going to try something a little bit different. Hey, it worked. Why don't you other guys try this? You can't do that because it's like, nope, top down, everybody conform.
Everybody. Race to the middle is what they've termed federal, education, being mandates being pressured into, public schooling and everything at the state level, blah, blah, blah.
It's better than the international monetary policy, which they call the race to the bottom. I guess it's better. Well,
I guess, because they say, and it really has, Common Core and, all the mandates that went with that, it really was taking the top tier schools and pulling them down, and the bottom tier schools, pulling them up a smidge, so everybody could be mediocre. You know what I mean? And it's just, no, like, no. And, some of the privacy concerns, that was something that I was, really alarmed by. When my daughter got into third grade, which was 3 years ago, because she's in sixth grade now, they had started doing the park testing, which was the new federal, mandated standardized test that would replace the ISATs that we used to have out here, the Illinois State Assessment Test or whatever the heck thingy. But I had, a packet like this thick, I had brought into the district office for the superintendent, my daughter's teacher, and her principal, refusing the park testing. But the funny thing is, they had made it difficult, because they made it in the mandate that you couldn't refuse the test, or that your student couldn't sit it out without using the ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education code 15, which, I guess was the magic number. Because, as long as you in your letter say, I'm not allowing my child to take this test and I'm invoking ISB code 15,
So you just leave out that code 15 and they ignore the letter.
Well, no, actually, if you leave out the code 15, they would ignore your letter. Yeah, they would not, honor, because they have it in the mandate that you can't refuse. But, if you use that code, it's, I can't remember what terminology they had used for it. But yeah, that code was basically like get out of the test free, but you had to use the code. And then I had also, just because I'm like that kind of dork, I had printed out, because I'd gone to the Common Core website and everything, printed out different like security concerns I had, because initially they had basically a data cloud, and it was called iBloom, which was a brainchild of what's his face that I hate, pencil neck, Gates, Bill Gates. There you go. I like pencil neck that I hate. Because he's behind a lot of that nonsense, where it's my philanthropy. No, you bastard, we know I know, at least,
Yeah, it's
like
it's
this.
probably a way to sell more windows, right?
Well, that's the thing. They actually, he was the one that helped to really get the funding going for Common Core, and it was his cronies that were tasked with creating the standards. And if you look at them, and you talk to people that are educators that know, how kids learn, how they develop, all that stuff, child psychologists, because the people that were tasked with creating Common Core, not educators. And if they were an educator, no class time. They'd never been in a classroom. Like they're businessmen, basically. So, to monetize education, they had Pearson, which is a school book company, that they were going to be getting the thousands of bajillions of dollars in funding to create Common Core aligned textbooks, and those were the ones that were going to be preferred. They were going to get preferential treatment, so they stood to make bajillions. Gates, is the one that's bankrolling all this, but he's going to get his money out of it. He's gonna
He's
but
probably
anyway,
got stock in Pearson's or something, right?
I think he did. Yeah, it was something like that. Like I said, like 4 or 5 years ago, like I would just rattle a bunch of shit off. But like we've like so thoroughly. I mean, it's like I said, it's still around. But I mean, the PARC testing, which is the I can't even tell you what PARC stands for anymore. But they had PARC, and then they had they had PARC, and then they had another one. I can't even remember that one. They had two standardized tests that were Common Core aligned that you had to use. SBAC was the other one. You either use PARC or use SBAC. Like there's no more individualized standardized testing by state. You had to pick one or the other. Now, with that standardized testing, there was they call it a longitudinal database, which supposedly they would anonymize the kids' information, but it would basically be this big data cloud that would hold your kids' like school file, school information, all the way from preschool to follow your ass into college or career, because that's what they were always, college and career readiness. Though if you were to ask any one of the people who structured Common Core, David Coleman being one of them, I hate that bastard too. If you were to ask him what kind of secondary or college education they're referring to, community. Yeah, like they're not looking to put kids in university level. We're not, sending anybody to the moon anytime soon. Again, we're not curing cancer or anything like that. Community college, and again, the race to the middle, it's a mediocre, like that's what they want. They want everybody just all the same malleable, drones walking around,
Right.
as George Carlin said, just smart enough to run the machines, but still stupid enough not to, realize how bad you're getting effed at the end of the day, so yeah.
Right.
It's
So
just, it's,
yeah, so
anyway.
I want to bring this back around to the homeschooling. So how does this all play in, like as far as like the standardized tests, and if your kids do want to go to college, is there, do they still get a diploma? Do they have to pass a standardized test in order to get that, or are there non-public schools that will offer some sort of certifications that colleges would accept on an application?
If I'm not mistaken, it's not a GED exactly, but it's something along those lines, like that they would have to go and get,
Take a test for a few hours and that kind of thing.
Yeah, just basically just to show like that they have basic, they can add, they can subtract, that sort of thing. And that they know the things that supposedly they're supposed to know by senior year of high school. Far as I know, yeah, that there's like a, if I'm not mistaken, like, again, going back to the community colleges, that there's programs at, community colleges, and then there's something else that you can do, like a diploma equivalency, or something like that. Because there's a lady out here locally who's been homeschooling for the last 6 years, and she was telling me her daughter just graduated 8th grade. So, homeschooled 8th grade. So, and I forgot to ask her, is there some, like, do you take her somewhere? Is there a diploma equivalency for, junior high school, or is it just high school? That would be something I have to figure out. But there is there's another website. It's the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. So it's hslda.com. And they have not only, attorneys, like if you find yourself at odds with your school district, because I had to make sure to write a letter again to the superintendent, the principal over at JJ's school, the school district principal over here where he'd be if he was at our district, and basically formally resign him from the school district because, it had been like maybe 2 or 3 days, and I had told his school that he wasn't coming back, and they still kind of like, well, we don't know, truancy and blah, blah, blah. So they will threaten. Yeah, they'll threaten.
Yeah, they're already getting ready to send the cops to your house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. But I mean, if you go to that website, they have, for people who are, beginner homeschoolers, they have, a lot of information there. And then they have state by state, they tell you how to, basically withdraw your child from the school district without having to worry about them getting stupid. State of Illinois, you can register as a homeschooler, but I didn't, because why? It's not required. So, like the lady I was talking to over a couple towns away, she had said, she's like, you can. And I had said, I'm like, oh, we're not going to. And she's like, oh, okay. And I said, I'm like, I don't know if I'm about to offend you. I'm like, but we're not big fans of government in our house. And she goes, oh, us either. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we'll get along.
Yeah. I mean, I like to compare, maybe it's the software engineer in me that likes to abstract everything, but I like to compare anything that you receive some benefit from to a business and put it in a different scenario. So, for example, you're saying with the school, we don't want to do business with you anymore, and they're threatening to call the police on you, send the police to your house. They're threatening you in a violent way, or it's not violence. It's only violence if you resist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so let's take this and put this in another scenario. If you had cell phone service with, let's just say, AT&T, and you walked into an AT&T store and said, I'm thinking about canceling, and they said, well, if you're thinking about canceling, you shouldn't, because we're going to send the police to your house. What do you do? Are you going to stay a customer, or are you going to say, fuck you, I'm out of here, I'm switching to T-Mobile?
Yeah. This is bullshit.
Right.
I might knock a couple things on my way out too.
I think, for anybody who's listening, who's maybe thinking about homeschooling, and maybe you don't hate the government so much, just think about that. Just think that they're willing to stick a gun in your face and say, are you really not stick a gun in your face, just like, open the jacket a little bit. I got my gun here. We're sending the police to your house.
Just a reminder. Yeah, absolutely. It's thuggery, like when you get down to it. It really is.
Do you really want your kids in a place like that? That doesn't make any sense. Nobody should want that.
Yeah, nor do you, would you want your kids in a place where you have to have, the secret freaking Zelda code to get them out of standardized testing? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. As much as I bitch about Facebook, that really... especially that time of my life, 4 or 5 years ago, before I really came into, being libertarian and anarchy and all that good stuff. I had always, even as a child, had a problem with authority. I probably have ODD too, whatever, which I think is, really just code for you can think for yourself and tell people to go fuck themselves when you need to. But yeah, do you really want your child in an environment where, their imagination, their creativity is being squelched, their need to move around, their love of learning, because my son loves learning. He really does, and, that was being, that little, spark was being snuffed out every day, just a little bit more, and, do you really want your kid in an environment where, they're supposed to be putting up with bullies, and not tattletaling, and, that they're being given lessons on, on things that, maybe in your house you're not in agreement with, and you can't, again, unless you have the secret Zelda code. And even then, sometimes they don't even, provide that. You're just not allowed to withdraw your kid from any sort of lessons that you may deem inappropriate, because, there's always the statement they throw out, which is, oh, well, there's a lot of parents out there that are teaching their kids the wrong things. And it's like,
there's a lot of teachers out there that are teaching the kids the wrong things.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
30
wrong
at a time.
Like wrong according to who? You know what I mean? Like it's absolutely ridiculous. There's a lot I don't agree with. And there's a lot of things that I have. Because my middle daughter, she's still in public school. She's gonna get ready to go into 7th grade in the fall, and that's because my ex-husband is a teacher. But he's a teacher. He wasn't in public school, but he got himself tossed out of there because he's a moron. But that's a story for another day. But he is a teacher at a Catholic high school now. And, he's the head of the history department and stuff. But, he's also like book smart. Oh, he's all right. But again, one of the dumbest people I know, like just, NPC through and through, you know what I mean? Like you ask him any of his opinions, straight off the TV, can't think for himself one bit, like parents out of books. Just, I mean, books are a good thing when it comes to parenting, but like he literally, will flail around like that poor child has no ability to think for himself. And
man,
I, know a lot of teachers like that, as
right.
terrible as that sounds, like I've had friends who are teachers say to me, oh, what about his socialization, with taking Jay out of school? And I want to be like, socialization, like, the kid that threatened him on the bus that when he got home, he was going to wait until dark and we're all asleep and come back and murder us all, including our pets. Like that kind of socialization, like, the socialization that my 3rd grader heard the C word, in 2nd grade. Yeah. I didn't hear the C word until I was in like 6th or 7th grade, like he heard it in 2nd and 3rd, and some of the stuff that, like the video games that are out, like, I look like I'd be, oh yeah, God love you, one of those fun moms. I'm really not. I'm an asshole. Like I really am. I'm very strict. Like I have no nonsense. I know, like, you better not, be smoking weed in my house. You better not, be having sex in my house. Like some of these kids, like more libertarian parents that are like, oh, I can't control. No, you better know it's anarchy in the streets,
yeah,
but in here,
there's still property rights.
It's straight up tyranny in here. Okay? Like, that's just the way it is, but anyway, but yeah, like, I mean, it's just, it really is the education system these days. It really is just a way to be sure that the people are easily subjugated and, again, malleable. Everybody's afraid of being called a bigot. Everyone's afraid of being called, a Nazi. I can't tell you how many times I've been called a Nazi.
For homeschooling?
Oh, no, just for, for having, libertarian and anarchist opinions. No, but I've been called a weirdo and stuff, like, oh, well, that's just your kid's going to be weird and you're weird anyway, and yeah, I am kind of weird. So, like who wants to be like, these zombies walking around here, like I find it concerning. There's a lot of parents, they want to be friends with their kids. If my kids hate me, cool, I'm doing my job right. Like you're not to be friends with your kids, and that's another thing that I feel like the school system like instills in kids, like a victimhood mentality. If your mom raises her voice a little bit, oh, abuse. If you're, if your dad, he finally gets frustrated and goes bananas and, ends up breaking your PlayStation controller, abuse, like whatever, like he didn't break it over your head, like I mean, I remember being a kid when, back in the day in the 90s and such, my dad, I had a corded phone in my room that I wasn't supposed to be using at night. And when my dad found out, he smashed it. You know what I mean? Like in this day and age, they'd be like, oh God, like,
Call the
oh,
police.
you know,
Yeah, and there's
yeah,
I've seen stories about kids turning in their parents because they caught them smoking drugs. Um,
yes,
you know,
them
uh,
tweet.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous the lengths that they'll go to. Um,
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're at the end of our show. I know you said you don't have your own website, but you did give us a lot of really great information as far as other websites and where people who are interested could get information.
Okay.
So thank you so much for that. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about this. It's been really, really interesting to hear about your actual experience instead of just kind of, hearing about, jokes about
Yeah.
homeschooling on South Park and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It is
Yeah.
totally different, and it's really interesting. And like I said before, I don't have any kids, but this is really interesting because all the time we're pouring all of this money into taxes, and they tell us it's for roads and schools. And well, let me ask you this: how much is this costing you to homeschool? Like, it sounds like it's not even very expensive.
It really isn't. I had forgotten to mention too, I use YouTube a lot, believe it or not. Like we were just going over fractions using YouTube videos, and then I had a
I
little
can
pad in
imagine.
my closet, all that good stuff. But yeah, it was $60 at education.com. I want to say though, if you pay 120, it's like lifetime free.
And this is
Every worksheet and everything.
And I want you to, like, if you're watching this and you're like, well, I don't pay any taxes because I don't earn enough money and I'm just renting, so I don't pay property tax. Get that out of your head. You're paying
Right.
more than a few $100s a month, even if you're just renting a really small apartment, because you're paying your landlord's property tax. And that's usually what
Absolutely.
goes to the schools.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've been telling people, I'm like, especially in this day and age, what a time to be alive. We have access to the entirety of human knowledge, I mean, the absolute entirety of it, and so there's like the lady that I had been talking to, she spends a good amount, like 1,000 to 2,000 a year, but that's on 3 kids homeschooling. I'm just homeschooling the one. And plus, I'm not paying for a curriculum or anything.
But that's an entire
it's
year even. That's
right. Yeah, exactly. That's a whole
what is
year,
what is I don't know if you know the stats. Like, what does it cost for an entire year to send someone through second grade or fifth grade? Or it's got to be tens
you
of
know,
or 20,000s of dollars.
yeah, I used to know what it was per student in this district.
It's
I
but it's
it's up there.
everybody. You're
It's
sharing
enough
the
to
cost
like
with everybody who's not going to school, and everybody's paying into the system, and it's an insane amount of money when you consider what it is.
really, yeah, yeah. I want to say it was something like 5 or 6 thousand per student, but I might be totally
And I'm sure it
off.
varies between
Yeah,
what city you're in and
depending on
everything
this,
too.
we are I mean, we're not a terribly affluent town, but we are a more affluent area. And we have a mobile refinery, as awful as that is, right across the river here from us, and the taxes they pay are up the A. Like as a matter of fact, homeowners last year got a refund out of nowhere from the school districts because we had overpaid in taxes. So, that was kind of cool. But I mean, that doesn't happen often. I will say our school district is pretty nice. But at the same time, our neighbor, which is our like sister town, they pay way more in taxes than we do. And we have better schools. Like our kids, 3rd grade, we get it's like a little mini laptop, a Chromebook. and they use it all the way through 8th grade. You pay $50 a year, and then you get to keep it after 8th grade. In Manuka, they won't even give out pencils free,
Wow.
So it's amazing the difference between some of the school districts, especially here in Illinois, as broke as this state is. But I honestly, I really feel like there's no reason not to homeschool, other than, I guess you just don't have the time or really just don't want to. But there are homeschool co-ops too. You could look in your area to see if there, are moms that would be willing to have your kid pop by, and, just talk to people, like Facebook groups. Like I've learned a lot from Facebook, again, pains me to say because Facebook, but, there's resources everywhere, everywhere.
Because I'm a computer nerd. So you said they're getting a Chromebook, and the first thing that popped in my head, $50 a year, which, okay, it's not a whole lot of money, but I'm thinking, wait a minute.
No.
Aren't the Chromebooks like $200? So I just Googled it real quick to verify that. Most of them they're between $100 and $200. So if you're paying $50 a year for what, 8 years? You're way, you might as well just get it yourself and homeschool.
Those bastards. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you might as well just buy the damn Chromebook yourself, and then, there you go. Because, actually, it's funny that you say that, because I already said to my husband, I was like, we need to get him like a little Chromebook or something like that, because my busted old HP laptop from Walmart that's like 7 years old or 6 or 7 years old just is not cutting it anymore. But see, but they'll get you eventually. They'll get you somehow,
Right.
But they're like, $250 for a Chromebook. It's a good deal, right? But but still, it really, if you don't want to pay anything, you don't have to. Like I said, the all-in-one-homeschool.com, all-in-one-homeschool.com. It's Christian based, but again, that one is totally free. It's totally free curriculum. And Ron Paul, that one you have to pay for. That one's amazing. And you had mentioned Khan Academy. They have that. And again, HSLDA.com, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, they have links and sources and stuff, that you can wade through. But, again, really in this day and age, in this current year, it's unbelievably easy to do. You just have to kind of take a deep breath and, just get yourself as organized as you can. Because, there's people that do unschooling. I couldn't unschool. Like unschooling, the thought of it freaks me out. You don't just sit down and do math. You know what I mean? You just unschooling, I haven't even really looked into so much because it just sounds way too unstructured for my comfort level. I'm a very disorganized person, but at the same time, I need at least a loose plan,
Right. Okay.
But and it really is, or I should say, it really is easy these days to homeschool. It's just a matter of hopping on the sweet, sweet internet, and networking.
Everything is online.
Yeah, everything. Yeah,
Everything.
anything you want. So, so I can't really think of any good reason not to, because who wants to worry about, bullying and, whatever.
Right. You're protecting your kids. You're giving them a better future.
Yeah. Right.
And now you have an excuse not to pay the education taxes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you'll save some money in the long run.
You're doing it all on your own. And, we know, and everybody, with any common sense knows that, they don't teach you how to, think for yourself. They don't teach you how to, they teach you what to think rather than how to think for yourself. It's never a matter of, we want these kids to be able to do some deep, reflective, thinking. It's, drawing little boxes instead of carrying, when it comes to addition and subtraction and all that stuff. You should see how convoluted it's gotten.
Yeah, I've seen some of it. It's
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So, all right. Well, thank you again for sharing this information with us, and we'll see you soon. And taxation is theft.
Woo! All right. Thank you very much.
Taxation is theft.
Please, at least leave us alone in our living room.
My job is to find the truth.
Double the taxes. I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value. Triple the taxes.
This is an IRS agent's dream.
If you think that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourself.
Beautiful, lovely taxes.
Sorry, but I don't do taxes.
Did you see the memo about this?
The government is a greedy piglet.
Just leave us alone.
Do you know what Ralph just said?
The roads. You boys like Mexico?